Hi everyone, this is Daisy here, aka Professional High Priestess, and I wanted to drop a channeling about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while on my channel, but wanted to put some other videos as like prerequisites and precursors to this topic. So for those who don't know, before I started my tarot channel, I was already, I have a large following on Facebook, Instagram, etc. I do a lot of racial justice work, social justice work, policy work, public health work. That's what my business is that I do when I'm not, doing readings for y'all and videos, right? So that's the legacy that I come from. Hardcore racial justice. I'm talking about Frantz Fanon, Malcolm X, like Yosef Ben Yochanan, like those are my teachers. You see what I'm saying? So when it comes to understanding like racism in the context of spirituality, I clearly see what it is. You see what I'm saying? So when I talk about racism, you have to understand racism is a system of power, okay, in which one group is set to benefit just based off of their skin tone, right? While another set of groups of people are set to lose based on their skin tone, okay? So let's just get that straight. People of color, people who are melanated, we can't be racist, but we can be prejudiced, yes. And we can be discriminatory, yes, but we cannot be racist because racism in itself is a system of power. Okay, then you have anti-blackness, okay, which is different than racism, which is basically an exclusion of everything having to do with blackness, all right? Because even certain peoples of colors, Latin, Asian, Indian, they can be anti-black, but they can't be racist because they are a person of color and they are also oppressed under the global system of white supremacy because it's global, okay? There's a really good quote that Andre 3000 he wrote, and it said, across all cultures, darker skinned people suffer the most. Why is that? Ask yourself that, right? Another thing that I want you to think about is why aren't there any dark skinned melanated visions, melanated images of divinity? Why did the Catholic Church and the Romans have to go into Egypt and destroy the facial figures of Africans from the statues, right? And bleach the walls and repaint the walls to make it look like people who are white-skinned or non-black? Why do they have to do that? Why in ancient India, in the Hindu tradition, remember Krishna means the blue-black man, right? Blue-black meaning he was so dark that his skin looked blue, okay? Why is it that they depict these different entities and deities that were known to have dark skin as green and blue and non-human colors? Why is that? Why is Yeshua, aka Jesus Christ, who it was described as depicted with his skin is burned as bronze and his hair like wool? Why do we have the image of Caesar Borgia, right, which is the fourth Pope's son? Don't play with me because I know my history. Why are we looking at Caesar Borgia as the image of Jesus, right? So when I talk about racism, I bring it from that perspective. And when it comes to, reading about doing readings for y'all and discussing karmics and entities and narcissism and things like that, y'all have to understand I don't discriminate against anybody. Because guess what? Not all skin is kin. And that's a conversation that I have with my people because remember, we've been through several thousands of years, hundreds and thousands of years of oppression, right? So our minds are a bit fucked up, right? And because if you are a part of a racial class of people who, historically your ancestors have facilitated harms against other people, there's karma right there for that too. Let's say, for instance, your family, they didn't benefit. They were indentured servants, right? They were on the lesser end of that. You experienced poverty regardless of your skin tone. Unfortunately, under the system of global white supremacy, they don't see it as such. They don't see that as an oppression because your skin will still get you passageway into doors that my skin will never get me, regardless of the degrees that I have, my work history, my ethics, etc. There's documented data about this, right? So there's a really good documentary, and it's called Unnatural Causes, and it's about a 6-part series by PBS, and it talks about, race in public health. So first, what they were talking about in regards to women and preterm birth, they were showing that even, the things that influence preterm birth and your health outcomes are your education, where you live, etc., right? Those are precursors to your health outcomes. They actually did research and showed that even black women with PhDs were making, 6 to 7 to 8 figures a year were still coming out with worse birth outcomes than white women, right, that had no degree and less than a high school diploma. So we clearly see that even when we do, are able to make our way out of poverty and able to, compete in this capitalistic racist society, we are still at a disadvantage, right? Because remember, you guys have to understand that those who embody whiteness and the mind of racist thinking, it's a psychological disorder and it's a spiritual disorder because racism is a type of narcissism, okay? So They had that data. There's all different types of studies, right, that they were showcasing this. Another thing that was interesting about that study, that they were showing that first generation Africans who came from Africa, right, to America, that their second generation, meaning their offspring, started to produce the same exact characteristics as the black women who have been here for hundreds of years, right? So I just wanted to put that a little bit into context. Now, we also know that there's colorism. That's a whole other topic. And it's literally people who are part of the same oppressed group or the same racial ethnic group discriminating each other based on, who's closer in color to their oppressor, right? Because literally, back in the slave days, that's how they would also pin us against each other. Oh, well, you're lighter skinned, so you must be better. You get to live in the house. That's the type of logic. So a lot of individuals who perpetuate that type of, mental illness and that type of thinking, what you're literally saying is, I'm happy that my ancestors were raped, right? And disregarded and disrespected in order to produce light skin, right? And that's what I'm dancing in and I'm parading in today. That's what you're saying. That you're glad that that's what was happening to your ancestors to produce lighter skin. Okay? For those who may not be African, who may be from the Latina variety, so you're basically saying that you're glad the conquistadors came into your community, right? And destroyed your indigenous ancestors. If you may be Southeast Asian, you're telling me that you're glad that the Aryans and the British came into your area, flipped the caste system upside down, enslaved darker skinned people, right? Flipped the whole caste system, because the darker was actually those who are, in divinity. Remember I talked about Krishna, the blue black man, right? So that's basically what you're saying, that you're glad that your ancestors were disregarded and they were disrespected and they had their sexuality, sex used as a weapon against them. They were forced to reproduce with their oppressor. That's what you're basically telling me when you play in that light skin versus dark skin stuff. Now that's going to take me to my next topic, because I got to break it down. It's layers, y'all. It's layers. Take me to my next topic, which is the discussion of whiteness and racism. Now, I don't have nothing against white folks. Me, actually, I feel like there's, people who have white skin, and then there's people who embody whiteness. There are some people of color who look just like me, but their minds are white. You see what I'm saying? They're assimilated. You see what I'm saying? That's why they have that movie Get Out about the sunken place. That's why they have that movie Sorry to Bother You. They're exploring and showcasing the ways in which whiteness and assimilation is more of a spiritual disorder and a mental disorder, okay? So I'm putting this video out there because I had somebody really stupid comment and say, the minute you made it about race, I'm unsubscribing. Good, because I want to tell you, there's, like I said, there's white people who have the mind of whiteness, and then there's just white folks who, they understand their privilege. They understand, the role that their ancestors have played. They understand the role that they have to play now in dismantling global white supremacy. And they understand that, yes, I'm a spiritual being, but at the same time, too, there are still privileges, right? That I'm able to move in and navigate in this matrix, regardless of the fact that I'm spiritual and, underneath everything, we all look the same, etc. Because those who don't realize that, you're facilitating something called spiritual bypass, narcissism, and projection. And you need to stop. And this is one of my problems with spiritual white people. You believe just because you're spiritual and just because you meditate and you pray, and I don't have anything against people of color, that doesn't make you a racist. No. For you to prove that you're not a racist, that means that you have gone through the process, right? Which is a healing process, because whiteness is trauma, right? You've gone through the process of identifying the ways in which you've embodied the sickness of whiteness, the ways in which you perpetuated white supremacy, and the ways in which you are still operating and benefiting off of the subjugation of other people. Because in this matrix, the way that they have it set up is that there are people who will benefit from global white supremacy, and then there are other people who will not benefit. And we know that there's a whole white brotherhood, etc. We know that there's a whole bunch of magic and shit like that involved in racism and the whole slave trade, all of that. We know that, right? But what you're not going to do is come on my channel, okay, and spew nonsense and garbage because you don't know yourself, right? And this is one of the issues that I also have, because this is another thing with white folks. Remember I told you it's a mental illness and it's narcissism? Why are you so self-centered to the point where when I'm discussing with folks of color who deliberately, purposely have this information taken away from us, bastardized and demonized so we don't get involved, what would possess you to come in here and tell me that I shouldn't be discussing this with my folks, or I shouldn't be giving them a little bit of extra focus? That's the narcissism, because you're so self-centered and inconsiderate and narcissistic, right? And trapped in your own ideologies and beliefs. You fail to realize that, wait, actually, this set of people, they've been spiritually disenfranchised. They've been culturally disenfranchised. They deserve a little bit more time, because as white people, we have the ability to move and access information and knowledge and wisdom that they don't. You see what I'm saying? Now, with the whole spiritual movement, which is another form of capitalism, right? The new age movement that a lot of these white folks are running up in, it's just turned into a new form of racism. Well, you know, I'm spiritual and I'm a vegan and I don't eat meat and, you know, love and light. So I'm better. I'm not a racist. I care about animals. I'm not a racist. See, I donated to this organization. No. Unless you've done what I talked about earlier, which is identifying the ways in which you benefit, 1, right? Identifying the ways in which you perpetuated this sickness, 2, and then identifying the ways in which you're going to help dismantle, 3. To me, you're still stuck in whiteness. You're still stuck in racism. I don't have nothing to do with you. I don't have nothing to say to you. Me personally, when I used to have a healthcare center, and I would host classes, and I had this one white woman come into my class, and she was basically like, of course, stealing information so she can go and rip it off and copy it herself. But she had the audacity to ask me, who said that you can teach this? What? From the bloodline? Are you crazy? From the bloodline that I come from? And that's another thing too. Respect your elders. Yes, that's exactly what I said. Respect your elders. Because a lot of y'all on my YouTube channel that be talking crazy and be coming out of the woodworks, y'all and these people that be operating in this spiritual hierarchy of who can, who can't, my bloodline is older than all of y'all's. My DNA is more preserved than all of y'all's. First of all. So when you're coming to my table asking me, you know, who ordained you to share this information and this knowledge, my bloodline did. Who ordained you? Because you don't even know where you came from. You don't even know your family legacy, because if you did, you'd be focusing on healing that karma, okay? Instead of tiptoeing and tampering all up on my page, talking nonsense. So I want to take it to another level too, in terms of the people of color who may also watch this and may side with, you know, that low vibrational, racist, white supremacist thinking, right? You are probably most likely suffering from assimilation, right? And the impacts of colonialism. So you need to decolonize your mind, because decolonizing your mind is a spiritual practice. It's a spiritual practice to go deep into your psyche, go deep into your DNA, unpack and identify the different forms of white supremacist, racist, anti-black, and self-hate programming, right? Bring it up to the surface and process it in a way that it's completely out of your system. Okay, so until you've done that, don't come on my page. And a lot of y'all, like I'm telling you, certain people, I can't even talk to you about certain topics unless you've like accessed, you know, certain levels of knowledge or wisdom. Like for instance, let me see. For certain people like that be on my page, I'm gonna try to give you an analogy. So for instance, it's like the Martin Luther King versus Malcolm debate. If I see you are more like inclined towards Martin Luther King and let's celebrate MLK and all the different stuff, and you know, Black Lives Matter, I have nothing against them, but I know the people who started that and they're not about what they say they're about, right? If you're more inclined toward those more mainstream racial justice movements, I already know off top that you haven't done the work, because not to discredit the work that they've done, but we already know that the real radical information is in people like Malcolm, right? And people like Patrice Lumumba, right? In like the Black Panther Party, etc. Let's just leave it at that. I just wanted to give an analogy. So for those of you watching my page and, you know, you're getting triggered by me focusing on people of color, African people, mentioning things about racism and white supremacy, get the fuck off my channel. Period. Because you're going to be upset. Because I'm actually going to be coming out with more episodes about healing from whiteness and unpacking whiteness, because it is a spiritual disease. It's a form of narcissism. Narcissism is a spiritual disorder. Okay? And the lady that made herself an example for this video is clearly suffering from an affliction. All right, y'all. So there's that. I just wanted to leave that channeling. Have a great day. Bye.